Jack's biological father went bankrupt, and his stepmother was panicking like a cat on hot bricks. But what they never expected was that the person who orchestrated all of this was their own son, Jack. "When you conspired to kill my mother and threw me out of the house, you should have known this day would come," Jack said coldly as he sent them to prison. No one knew that the once homeless teenager had now transformed into the CEO of a top financial empire. As the city lights lit up, wealthy socialites gathered at a banquet, heatedly discussing the matter. Rose, upon hearing about Jack's family bankruptcy, recalled their past. Absent-mindedly, she downed a glass of alcohol, her first time ever drinking. Drunk and emboldened, Rose saw Jack being entangled by a rich woman and immediately stormed forward, slapping the woman's hand away. "Touch my man again, and you won't live to regret it." Jack looked at her, puzzled. "Since when did I become yours?" Without hesitation, Rose grabbed Jack by the collar, pulled him close, and kissed him. "This is proof." As the rich woman stared in shock, Jack pushed Rose against the wall and kissed her back. "You started this, Rose. Don't regret it later." Looking at Rose's face, Jack suddenly recalled their first meeting, years ago, when he was being bullied in high school. It was Rose who had kicked his tormentors away and rescued him. From that moment on, he had fallen for her. Now, Rose had taken the initiative to kiss him, and she looked at him with unwavering determination. "I will never regret it." Jack's gaze darkened with possessiveness. He picked her up effortlessly and turned to the stunned rich woman. "Apologies, but I already belong to someone," he said before carrying Rose away. The next morning, Rose woke up with a pounding headache, only to see Jack sitting beside her bed, legs crossed casually. She thought she was hallucinating, but Jack suddenly pulled out a contract and handed it to her. A sponsorship agreement? Rose's eyes widened in shock. Memories of last night's wildness flashed through her mind. Jack, afraid she might deny everything, unbuttoned his shirt, revealing the kiss marks she had left on his skin. As if that wasn't enough, he pulled out his phone and played a video, a full 5 hours of their time together. "You still want to back out?" he asked smugly. Rose's face burned with embarrassment. Gritting her teeth, she signed the contract, paying the price for last night's recklessness. Seeing Rose fall into his trap, Jack smiled in satisfaction. He picked her up again and whispered, "Now let me serve my benefactor properly." Rose panicked and told him to put her down immediately, but Jack took the opportunity to steal another kiss, making her heartbeat quicken. Jack, as a so-called sugar baby, was truly flawless. He flaunted his toned abs while skillfully preparing breakfast for Rose. Watching him move around the kitchen, shirtless and effortlessly charming, Rose nearly had a nosebleed. She muttered under her breath, "Lord, please forgive my sinful thoughts." Jack suddenly took her hand and placed it on his abs. "Loving me is not a sin. The Lord will bless you," he teased. Rose, completely flustered, quickly took a step back. Meanwhile, the rich woman from last night was reporting Jack's relationship with Rose to a group of men. She was actually Jack's aunt, and the man she was speaking to was Jack's grandfather. Delighted, the old man decided to propose marriage on Jack's behalf, thinking he would give his grandson a wonderful surprise. The assistant beside him, however, looked extremely worried. Sure enough, when Jack's grandfather showed up at Rose's home to propose, Rose's younger sister, Amy, was overwhelmed with jealousy. She decided to ruin the engagement and, if possible, take Rose's place. To achieve her goal, Amy sent Rose to her own fiancé and tricked Jack into catching them together. Just as Rose was about to be drugged unconscious, Jack stormed into the room. But the sight before him was completely unexpected. A naked man was tied up, while Rose was sitting on top of him, slapping him repeatedly. "You dare to drug me? I'll kill you," Rose yelled, raising her fist to land another punch. Jack rushed forward to stop her. When Rose saw Jack, she instantly switched from a fierce warrior to a delicate flower. With tears in her eyes, she whimpered, "Jack, you finally came to save me." Jack's heart ached as he pulled her into his arms, but Rose still took the opportunity to stomp on the man a few more times. Under the effects of the drug, Rose could no longer recognize who was in front of her. She took off Jack's luxury watch and suit jacket, murmuring, "Jack deserves only the best things." Jack watched her indulgently, "Marry me, Rose," he whispered. The next day, Jack and Rose's marriage certificate was being passed around by his family members. "My grandson is incredible." One blind date, and he immediately locked it down. Jack's grandfather praised, eagerly awaiting the arrival of great-grandchildren. Meanwhile, Rose woke up in shock. She found herself wrapped in a luxurious suit with a top financial empire's logo, clutching a high-end men's watch.
Panic set in.
A man walked out of the bathroom. She instinctively grabbed a pillow to cover herself. "We're already married, and you're still this shy?" the man teased. Rose was stunned. She clearly remembered marrying Jack, so why was the man in front of her the CEO of a financial empire? Thinking she had married the wrong person, Rose quickly made up a lie, claiming she loved someone else. She even blurted out a random name before fleeing in panic. Little did she know, the so-called financial empire CEO was Jack himself. Hearing the name she mentioned, Jack's jealousy flared. "Find out everything about this man," he ordered his assistant. That night, Jack kissed Rose's hand and asked, "Besides me, do you love someone else?" Rose, struggling with how to explain, remained silent. Jack sighed. "I knew it. Women always stop cherishing men once they have them," he said dramatically, turning to leave. Panicked, Rose grabbed him and reassured him. "I only love you." Satisfied, Jack wrapped her in his arms. Feeling guilty, Rose decided to find Jack a job. Jack misunderstood and immediately began taking off his clothes. "I'm ready," he smirked. Rose face-bombed. "A real job, you idiot." She brought him to her company and made him her assistant. But Amy soon arrived with her fiancé, seeking a business deal. Unaware that Rose was the real boss, they mocked her mercilessly. Enraged, Rose took off her shoe and threw it at them. Just then, Jack's assistant arrived with breaking news. "Rose is already married to our CEO." Amy was stunned. Before she could react, Jack slapped her and punched her fiancé. Worried that Jack would come after her for an explanation, Rose quickly bolted away. However, Jack had no intention of letting her off so easily. Amused, he teased, "So, are you trying to make me the other man?" Rose immediately denied it. Jack, feigning a pitiful look, asked, "Then does that mean you're not going to keep me anymore?" Left with no other choice, Rose yanked him toward her and sealed his lips with a kiss, effectively shutting him up. Rose decided to end this absurd marriage and went straight to her so-called husband's house, almost running into Jack. His grandfather quickly covered for him. Rose then stated her intention. She wanted a divorce. Jack's grandfather immediately clutched his chest as if in unbearable pain, looking as though he would drop dead if she mentioned divorce again. Helpless, Rose had no choice but to stay silent. On the wedding day, determined not to let Jack catch her, Rose sneaked out early in the morning. Jack, however, saw right through her. Deliberately clinging to her, he left a mark on her neck, only letting her leave once he was satisfied. Rose had never planned to marry the CEO of a financial empire. She found Amy and arranged for her, someone who had always dreamed of being the CEO's wife, to be her substitute. Just as Rose was about to make her escape, Jack walked in wearing his groom's suit and asked, "Where do you think you're running off to, my bride?" He shoved Amy aside, took Rose's hand, and announced his true identity to everyone. Rose finally realized that the sugar baby she had been keeping was actually the legendary billionaire CEO. Furious at Jack for deceiving her, she was about to lash out, but he seized her by the neck and kissed her deeply. Taking advantage of her momentary daze, he skillfully used his charm to defuse her anger. Meanwhile, Jack's former high school classmates were unaware of his true identity. Mistaking him for a bankrupt loser, they invited him to a reunion, intending to mock him for being a kept man. Just as they started taunting him, Rose arrived with a group of bodyguards, standing proudly by his side. She fiercely put them in their place, reminding Jack of the time when Rose had once saved him in the same way. "The feeling of being protected by you, it's nice," Jack said with a smile. Rose smirked and pulled him closer, sealing his lips with a kiss. However, Rose's father used her adoptive father as leverage to force her into divorcing Jack. For the sake of the man who raised her, Rose had no choice but to comply. Jack was furious. He misunderstood the situation, believing that Rose's adoptive father was the man she truly loved, only to discover that he was actually an elderly man. Realizing his mistake, Jack instantly went from seething with rage to overjoyed. With a beaming smile, he called out, "Father-in-law," only to scare the poor man into fainting on the spot. But Rose's biological father was far more ruthless. In an attempt to sever Rose's ties with Jack, he drugged Jack and placed him in Amy's bed. Fortunately, Jack's assistant arrived just in time to save him. However, Amy took the opportunity to falsely claim that it was Rose who had personally drugged Jack and sent him into her arms, successfully driving a wedge between them. Jack planned to leave the country, but before he could, he was kidnapped by his half-brother. Filled with resentment over how Jack had sent his parents to prison, his brother intended to kill him for revenge. Just when Jack and his assistant thought they were doomed, a white car suddenly screeched to a halt in front of them. The window rolled down, revealing a fierce-looking Rose. "Get in," she ordered, successfully rescuing them. After escaping danger, Rose had her assistant take over the wheel. She then raised the partition, turned to Jack, and tackled him onto the back seat sofa. The assistant silently saluted her boldness. Looking into Jack's eyes, Rose confessed, "From the moment I first saw you, I fell in love with you." She then explained that it was her father, not her, who had set him up with Amy. Jack was overjoyed, immediately sealing her lips with a passionate kiss. Seeing the two reconcile, Jack's family was thrilled. They took out an old diary from Jack's high school days, revealing pages filled with his secret admiration for Rose. Jack, realizing his deepest secrets had been exposed, was about to settle the score with them. However, Rose stepped in front of him protectively. Jack, despite his frustration, dared not argue. His family, watching this scene unfold, sighed in satisfaction. "So, this is what it feels like to be protected?" Jack's grandfather mused. "It's amazing." Amidst cheers and blessings, Jack and Rose held a grand wedding. But just as the ceremony was about to conclude, Jack's brother suddenly kidnapped Rose and used her as leverage against him. As he aimed a gun at Jack, Rose seized the opportunity to break free from her restraints and knocked him out with a brick. "You dare lay a hand on my man? You must have a death wish," she sneered, successfully resolving the crisis. Jack looked at her with admiration. "You're like a real-life heroine," he praised. Finally, they completed their long-awaited wedding. The moment the priest declared them husband and wife, Jack pulled Rose into his arms, and they shared a passionate kiss.